It was supposed to be just another ordinary day on the road. The sun was shining, engines were roaring, and a biker, full of arrogance and ignorance, decided to pick the wrong target. Spotting a black woman at a gas station, he hurled insults her way, laced with racial slurs. When she stood her ground, he escalated, shoving her, laughing as if he had won some twisted game. But what he didn't know, what would soon turn his day into an unforgettable nightmare, was that her husband was none other than the former heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson. And Tyson was just around the corner. The biker chuckled to himself, relishing in his display of power as the woman stumbled back, her expression a mix of shock and anger. A few bystanders looked on, some too afraid to intervene, others pulling out their phones to record the unfolding scene. The biker smirked. He had seen this before. People talked big, but no one ever stepped up. Then, a voice cut through the air, low and calm but carrying an unmistakable weight. "Hey, that's my wife." The biker turned around, ready to snap back with some smart remark, until he saw him. A man, stocky and muscular, walked toward them with a measured pace. His face was familiar, but the biker's brain took a second to connect the dots. The tattoo on the side of his face, the unmistakable aura, and then, it hit him like a freight train. Mike freaking Tyson. The biker felt his stomach drop. His mouth suddenly went dry. The cocky grin vanished as Tyson stepped closer. His eyes locked onto the man who had just put his hands on his wife. The air around them shifted. The bystanders who had been watching in silence now murmured with excitement. Their cameras zooming in. The biker, for the first time in a long time, felt something he wasn't used to: fear. Tyson stopped just a few feet away, tilting his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You like hidden people, huh?" The biker swallowed hard. His hands twitched by his sides, as if debating whether to apologize, run, or, God forbid, try to fight back. But before he could decide, Tyson took another step forward. The biker instinctively took a step back. His heart pounded against his ribs like a jackhammer. He had been in plenty of bar fights before, thrown a few punches, taken a few hits, but this was different. This was Mike Tyson. Tyson didn't need to raise his fists to be terrifying. His presence alone carried the weight of countless knockouts, of sheer, unfiltered power. The biker knew what Tyson was capable of, everyone did. And now, he was standing face to face with a man whose punches could end careers, break bones, and shatter egos in seconds. "Look, man, I didn't know she was your wife," the biker stammered, trying to mask his growing panic. "It was just a misunderstanding. All right?" Tyson didn't blink. He just stood there, his face unreadable, his eyes locked onto the man in front of him. The silence was suffocating. The biker could hear his own breathing, ragged and uneven. The crowd had grown. More people had gathered, whispering excitedly. Cameras held high. They weren't just watching, they were waiting to see if the legend himself would deliver one of his infamous blows. Tyson took another step forward. The biker's body tensed. "A misunderstanding?" Tyson repeated, his voice eerily calm. "So you just randomly go around shoving women?" The biker opened his mouth, but no words came out. Tyson exhaled slowly, his massive shoulders rising and falling. "I should break your jaw right now." The biker flinched. He knew Tyson wasn't bluffing. "Please, man, I made a mistake." His voice cracked, his bravado completely gone. He was no longer the tough guy who had been shoving women and throwing insults. He was just another man who realized, too late, that he had messed with the wrong person. Tyson tilted his head, considering something. Then, just as the biker thought he might actually get out of this alive, Tyson's right fist twitched. A small movement, but enough to make the biker nearly jump out of his own skin. "Tell you what," Tyson finally said, his voice soft but sharp as a blade. "You're gonna apologize, right now, in front of everyone." The biker swallowed hard. His hands shook. He turned toward the woman, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry." Tyson narrowed his eyes. Louder. The biker's throat tightened. He took a breath, then forced out the words, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that." The murmurs in the crowd grew. Some people snickered. Others whispered about how lucky the biker was that Tyson hadn't knocked him into next week. Tyson stared at the man for another long second, then slowly nodded. "Good, Now get the hell outta here before I change my mind." The biker didn't hesitate. He turned on his heels and practically sprinted to his motorcycle, fumbling to start it. The second the engine roared to life, he peeled out of the gas station, tires screeching as he disappeared down the road. The crowd erupted into cheers. Some people clapped, others laughed. Tyson turned to his wife, his expression softening. "You okay, baby?" She smiled, shaking her head. "Yeah, I was fine, but I gotta say, that was fun to watch." Tyson chuckled. "Yeah, well, he got off easy." The two of them walked back to their car, the excitement of the moment settling into the air like an unforgettable story that would be told over and over again. And somewhere down the road, a biker rode in stunned silence, realizing just how close he had come to being knocked into oblivion. As the biker sped off, his knuckles white against the handlebars, his mind raced faster than his engine. His heart still pounded, his palms were sweaty, and the echo of Tyson's voice, "I should break your jaw right now," played over and over in his head like a bad dream. He had faced danger before. He had brawled in bars, outrun cops, and squared up against men twice his size. But this was different. This was Mike Tyson. His throat felt dry as he swallowed, replaying the moment. He had shoved that woman, hell. He had insulted her, and the second he realized who her husband was, his entire world had flipped upside down. He got lucky, damn lucky, but deep down, something in his gut told him this wasn't over. Back at the gas station, Tyson and his wife watched the crowd slowly disperse, the excitement still buzzing in the air. A few people lingered, hoping for a photo, a handshake, anything, but Tyson wasn't in the mood. He exhaled through his nose, rolling his shoulders, still feeling the adrenaline in his veins. He had let the guy walk. That wasn't like him. His wife nudged him. "You all right?" Tyson nodded slowly. "Yeah, just thinking." She raised an eyebrow. "About what?" His jaw tightened. Guys like that don't let things go easy. His wife's expression darkened. "You think he'll come back?" Tyson didn't answer. He didn't have to, because he had spent his whole life around fighters, bullies, and cowards, and he knew that sometimes, when a man's pride took a hit, he'd rather take a beating than live with the humiliation. And something told him this biker wasn't the type to just ride off into the sunset. Sure enough, miles away, the biker's grip tightened around the throttle. His mind was a storm, anger, embarrassment, and the bitter taste of fear all mixing together. He had been humiliated, in front of a crowd, in front of cameras, and he hated that. His ego screamed at him, his rage boiling over. He thought about his crew, his biker brothers. He wasn't alone, he had backup, and if he showed up with them, things would be different. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. With a sharp turn, he veered off the highway, heading straight for the bar where his gang usually gathered. Tonight, he was coming back with a pack, and Mike Tyson had no idea what was coming. Back at the gas station, Tyson and his wife had just finished pumping gas. The excitement had died down, but that lingering sense of unease hadn't left Tyson's mind. He knew when a fight was truly over, and this one wasn't. As he pulled open the car door, his wife placed a hand on his arm. "You really think he'll be back?" she asked. Tyson exhaled through his nose, eyes scanning the road. Men like him don't walk away after getting punked like that. If he's smart, he'll let it go, but if he's stupid, Tyson trailed off, cracking his neck. "We'll find out soon enough." His wife studied him for a moment before nodding. She had seen that look in his eyes before, the same cold focus he had before a fight. And if there was one thing she knew about her husband, it was this: he never walked away from a challenge. Across town, the biker's boots hit the pavement as he stormed into a dimly lit bar, the familiar scent of cigarette smoke and cheap whiskey filling the air. At a table in the back, 4 men looked up from their drinks. His crew, the Hellhounds. "Yo, what's up?" one of them asked. Sensing his bad mood, the biker slammed his fist onto the table, his face still red with humiliation. "We got a problem." "Who?" another asked, leaning in. The biker hesitated for just a second before muttering 2 words that made them all sit up. "Mike Tyson." Silence, then laughter. "You're screwing with us," one of them scoffed, shaking his head. "You trying to tell me you got into it with Mike Tyson and you're still breathing?" The biker's jaw clenched. "Yeah, well, he didn't do nothing, just made me apologize, in front of everyone. His fists tightened. "Made me look like a damn punk." One of his crew, a burly guy with a scar running down his cheek, leaned forward, smirking. "So what? You want to go back and take another swing at the former heavyweight champion of the world?" The biker gritted his teeth. "I want to remind that mother effer that we don't back down. No one embarrasses me. Not even him." The group exchanged glances. They were no strangers to fights. But Tyson? That was a different level. Finally, the scarred man spoke. "We don't gotta fight him straight up." A slow, sinister grin spread across his face. "He's just one man. And we're five." The biker smirked. "That's what I'm talking about." Back at the gas station, Tyson and his wife had just pulled out onto the road, the city lights glowing in the distance. It was quiet, too quiet. Tyson tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, his instincts screaming at him. Then, in the rearview mirror, he saw them. Motorcycles, 5 of them. Engines growled like wild animals, the headlights casting eerie beams onto the pavement. They were gaining on him. Fast. Tyson's lips pressed into a thin line. His wife followed his gaze and tensed. "They're back." Tyson didn't respond. He just flexed his fingers and exhaled. "Stay in the car, baby." Then, with absolute calm, he pulled over. The motorcycles screeched to a stop, surrounding them like wolves circling prey. One by one, the bikers climbed off their rides, boots hitting the pavement. The same biker from before stepped forward, his smirk returning now that he wasn't alone. "Told ya this wasn't over, old man." Tyson slowly stepped out of the car, the streetlight catching the tattoo on his face, his silhouette sharp and unmoving. His voice was low, measured. "You should have just gone home." The biker cracked his knuckles. "Nah, I think we're gonna have some fun first." His crew chuckled, spreading out, surrounding Tyson. But what they didn't realize, what they failed to understand, was that Tyson had been in worse situations. He had fought men bigger, stronger, and meaner than them, and every single one of them had hit the ground. Tyson rolled his shoulders. "All right, then." He smiled. "Let's dance." The night air was thick with tension as Tyson stood facing the 5 bikers. Their boots scraped against the asphalt. Their eyes locked on him with a mix of arrogance and anticipation. They thought they had the upper hand. But Tyson had a presence that made it clear this wasn't a fight they were ready for. The lead biker, the one who had humiliated himself earlier, smirked, cracking his knuckles. "You really think you can take all of us, old man?" Tyson's eyes narrowed, his fists slowly clenching as he sized them up. "I don't need to take all of you. Just the ones that get in my way." The biker's grin faded slightly. But he wasn't about to back down now. He gestured to his crew, and they spread out, preparing for what they thought would be an easy beatdown. They'd been on the road long enough to know how to handle a lone man. They'd fought bigger, tougher guys than Tyson. But this wasn't just some street brawler. The first biker charged. He came in swinging, wild and untrained. But Tyson's reflexes were lightning fast. Without even flinching, Tyson sidestepped the punch, grabbing the biker's arm and twisting it behind his back in one smooth motion. The man yelped as his wrist snapped back at an unnatural angle. "You'll want to think twice before you throw that punch again," Tyson said calmly, his voice like a low growl. The rest of the crew hesitated. They'd seen their friend get taken down in the blink of an eye. But the biker leader motioned them forward. "Get him. Don't let him mess with us." But they were too slow. The next biker lunged at Tyson, swinging a heavy chain. Tyson ducked just in time, feeling the breeze of it whip past his head. Without hesitation, he grabbed the chain mid-swing, yanking it from the man's grip and wrapping it around his wrist in a single fluid motion. He pulled the biker forward, using the chain to throw him off balance, and with one swift kick, sent him crashing to the ground. The remaining 3 bikers were now on edge, circling Tyson like wolves. They'd seen their own men fall easily. And now they were realizing they weren't just dealing with an ex-boxer. They were facing a fighter who had mastered the art of destruction with nothing but his body and raw instinct. Tyson, standing tall and unshaken, grinned. "You sure you want to do this?" The leader's face turned red with rage. "You think you can just take us all down? We'll crush you, old man." But Tyson wasn't listening anymore. He stepped forward, closing the gap between them, and in a blur of motion, he dodged the first punch thrown at him. He retaliated with a lightning-fast jab that sent the biker stumbling back. The leader wasn't used to being on the defensive. And it showed. Tyson didn't give him a second to recover. He landed a right hook that knocked him off his feet, sending him sprawling to the ground in a daze. The remaining bikers exchanged glances, fear creeping into their expressions. Tyson wiped his fist on his jeans, his focus never leaving them. Last chance. Walk away. Now. But just as they were about to decide, a loud roar shattered the moment. Hey, what the hell's going on? Here? A new figure emerged from the shadows, another biker. Bigger and rougher than the rest. This one was built like a wall, towering over the group, with a wild look in his eyes. His voice had authority, and his very presence made the air feel thicker. This is our turf, Tyson. You don't get to come here and make a spectacle of us. The biker's voice echoed through the night as he advanced. Tyson's eyes locked on him, instantly sizing him up. He could tell this guy wasn't just some hothead, he was the leader of this gang. The one who held the power. The one who'd been pulling the strings from behind the scenes. The new arrival cracked his neck, grinning menacingly. I think you've had enough fun. Now it's time for you to pay. Tyson took a step forward, rolling his neck. I'm not here for your games, pal. I'm here to end this. The two men stood facing each other, the tension in the air so thick it felt like it could snap at any moment. The crowd around them had grown, eager to see who would come out on top. The first two bikers lay on the ground, barely conscious, but the rest of the crew was still ready to fight. Without warning, the biker lunged, throwing a wild punch, but Tyson was already one step ahead. He ducked, dodged, and delivered a crushing right hook that sent the biker crashing to the ground. But this wasn't the end. No, this was just the beginning. The biker lay on the ground, struggling to get up, but his body was stiff from the force of Tyson's punch. The rest of the crew had backed off, unsure of what to do. Their leader was down, and Tyson was still standing strong, his fists ready, his posture relaxed but deadly. The remaining bikers looked at each other, eyes wide with fear. They knew they were outmatched. The legend in front of them wasn't just an ex-boxer, he was a force of nature. But one of them, a scrappy biker with a scar across his cheek, had a wild look in his eye. We're not done, he yelled, charging at Tyson with a knife in hand. But Tyson didn't flinch. He was ready for this. In one fluid motion, he sidestepped the knife, grabbing the biker's wrist and twisting it until the knife fell to the ground with a clatter. The man yelped in pain. But Tyson wasn't done. You're finished, Tyson growled, delivering a crushing elbow to the biker's midsection that sent him flying backward, knocking the wind out of him. The man crumpled to the ground, gasping for air. The remaining bikers, now realizing they were completely outmatched, exchanged terrified glances. They had seen enough. The man they had hoped to take down had utterly demolished their crew with ease. Tyson wasn't just a fighter, he was a machine. Unstoppable, unbeatable. One of the bikers backed away slowly, hands raised in surrender. We're done. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We didn't know. Tyson took a step forward, his voice calm but full of authority. Then get out of here. Take your boys and leave. Before I change my mind. The remaining bikers didn't hesitate. They scrambled to their motorcycles, their eyes wide with fear, and sped off into the night, their engines roaring as they disappeared down the road. Tyson stood there for a moment, his chest heaving with the adrenaline of the fight. He glanced over at his wife, who was still sitting in the car, her eyes wide with concern, but also admiration. You all right, baby? Tyson asked, walking toward her. She opened the door and got out, her arms wrapping around him as she gave him a quick kiss. Yeah, I'm fine. You were amazing. Tyson smiled, brushing a hand over his face. Just another day, baby, just another day. As the dust settled and the sound of the motorcycles faded into the distance, Tyson and his wife got back into their car. The night was still, the danger now gone, but the tension in the air lingered a little longer. Tyson started the engine, pulling back onto the road. His wife sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. Do you think they'll ever come back? She asked, looking out the window. Tyson didn't say anything for a moment, his fingers tightening around the wheel. He knew what the bikers were capable of. They wouldn't just forget about. If they do, he finally said with a smile, they'll get the same treatment as tonight. His wife chuckled. I guess you really are Mike Tyson. Huh? He grinned, looking over at her. You better believe it. And with that, they drove off into the night. The danger behind them, knowing that whatever came next, they could handle it together.